So we've moved just a few plots down, and now we're talking about J.J. Sperry of the 73rd Ohio. What's his story?
Well, first of all, the name's wrong.
Oh, whoops.
It's not uncommon here
Right.
to find that either names or regiments or some other mistake has been made. There were a number of stonecutters who produced these headstones for the various grave sites, and English was not the first language of many of these stonecutters. Add in some of the complications that go with handwriting
Right.
in the Civil War era. Think about how tough it is for some of us to read cursive now.
Or even
And-
our own handwriting
or
sometimes.
our own handwriting. And sometimes they just made mistakes, and this is one of those cases. I'm sure the family never had a chance to come back and correct it, but instead of JJ, well, it should be at least IJ because his first name is Isaac. If you think about cursive writing, a capital I and a capital J are not that far off from
Right.
each other if you do it according to the system of writing that they wanted you to use back then. And so apparently it was just misread. So Isaac Sperry is here. And even the last name is spelled wrong.
Oh, no.
Here it's Sparry. The official records have him as Sperry, Sperry. So on several accounts, our poor soldier here has not been treated well by history at all. He did enlist in Company G of the 73rd Ohio. That puts him in the same regiment as Private George Nixon. And he's going to have he's going to be wounded on the first day of the battle, shot in the chest, mortally wounded. Doesn't last very long. Dies on the 3rd of July,
Right.
and his remains will end up up here in the National Cemetery after being buried originally down on this George Spangler farm. He has a wife back in Ohio. Her name is Hulda, Hulda, not Hilda.
Hulda.
A slightly different name. And she and Sperry have been married for quite some time. They got married back in 1850.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we have somebody celebrating a 23rd anniversary, and now we're on to a 13th anniversary.
Right.
There are some marriages really being strained by this war in very dramatic ways. After she finds out what happens to her husband, she is going to go through the process that we've described of applying for a pension, and she will receive one. But this case just underscores how long support for a family can go.
Right.
Mrs. Sperry, Hulda, is not going to remarry, and she will be entitled to call on the government for payouts until she dies. She is not going to pass away until 1902.
Wow.
So the checks will keep coming, and the bullet that killed her husband here triggers a lot of those ripples we were talking about.
Of course.
But ultimately helped to keep a family together.
And one other quick point related to the misspelling of a name speaks to, of course, the Civil War, an era before dog tags and even just regular personal identification. There's a lot of stock just put into, my name's Isaac, and that's just how it is. I mean, he may have been, I'm sure he probably wasn't making up a name or anything like that, but the point is, this makes things tricky when people turn up missing or whatnot, trying to track down the right names.
It's almost like you're reading my cards here. Remember that phrase, made up a name.
Okay.
Because it's going to come back to us.
But it speaks to the importance of an effort that Clara Barton begins towards the end of the war, the Missing Soldiers Office, just because there's so much uncertainty about names being associated with people, where they were, and all that sort of thing. It's just that's what it calls to mind for
Absolutely.
me. And we, of course, love Clara Barton at the museum, and we take every opportunity we can to talk about her. So with that, we'll go ahead and move to our next graveside.
Okay.